Hello everyone, and welcome to the Tome of Silver, the show where I randomly select a game from my collection, review it, and add it to an ever-growing ranking list. I love fighting games. From Street Fighter to King of Fighters to Marvel vs. Capcom, I've dipped my toe in the genre time and again to see what's new in the world of button bashers. I feel confident in saying that I'm a fighting game fan, but despite how many fighters I've bought and played, I'm not much of a fighting game player. I've never had the time to fully sit down and learn the ins and outs of a particular fighter, nor have I really learned much of the terminology. I have no idea what a wake-up attack is, nor do I know what it means to tech something. I'm just a casual fan that likes putting in a fighter every now and again to unwind and enjoy some of the cool characters that come with them. And few fighting game rosters ever caught my eye quite like the roster of Soul Calibur. For the uninitiated, Soul Calibur originally started as Soul Edge, a 1996 arcade game. Soul Edge was a fighter much in the same vein of Tekken, taking place in a 3D open arena, allowing for fighters to step into the foreground and background to maneuver around their opponent. Unlike Tekken though, which had fighters using fists and kicks to take down opponents, Soul Edge's cast had a wide range of weapons, such as swords, naginata, and claws, each with their own fighting style to accompany them, as each warrior fights to obtain the legendary sword, Soul Edge. The game was immensely popular when it first released in arcades, resulting in a sequel, Soul Calibur, a title which all future entries would fall under. Soul Calibur garnered similar success, and naturally another sequel would be greenlit. Today's title, Soul Calibur 2, would be the final Soul Calibur game originally released for arcades in 2002, eventually being ported to the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox in 2003. For many, Soul Calibur 2 is hailed as the greatest game in the whole series. Is Soul Calibur 2 as legendary as they say, or has its steel started to rust? Ready your fighting stance? Let out a battle cry. Let's turn the page to Soul Calibur 2 for the Nintendo GameCube.
Soul Calibur 2.
Soul Calibur 2 takes place in the year 1590, 4 years after the events of the first Soul Calibur and 7 years after Soul Edge. Being an arcade fighter, the story of Soul Calibur 2 is rather light. Essentially, in the previous game, the powerful sword known as Soul Edge was destroyed, sending its fragments around the world. Each of the game's fighters, whether it be for noble or selfish purposes, seek out the fragments to either restore Soul Edge and claim its power for their own, or to destroy it once and for all. Soul Calibur 2 consists of 25 selectable characters, 4 of which are exclusive for the home console port. The first of these exclusive characters are Sophitia and Seong Mina, both of whom are making their return from previous entries. Third, we have Necrid. Necrid was designed by Todd McFarlane of all people, who is best known for his work as an artist on The Amazing Spider-Man, and for creating the American comic character, Spawn. The fourth character can be one of 3 guest characters, each exclusive to a console. The PlayStation version of Soul Calibur 2 had Heihachi from Tekken. The Xbox version, likely due to McFarlane's involvement with the creation of Necrid, had Spawn. Finally, the reason why we're looking at the GameCube version, and what I regard to be the best guest character to be featured in Soul Calibur, the GameCube version had Link from The Legend of Zelda. While we all know the GameCube owners clearly got the better guest fighter, regardless of which version of Soul Calibur you choose, the roster is excellent. Soul Calibur's cast is immediately distinct from one another, hosting some of the most iconic designs in fighting games, and Necrid. Though story is light as mentioned previously, each cast member has a full profile and reason as to why they are fighting to obtain the fragments of Soul Edge. Even without these profiles though, just their fighting stances and victory poses shine a clear light on the characters' individual personalities. Their personalities even shine through with their fighting styles. Raphael's graceful rapier style reflects his noble upbringing. Taki has fast-hitting moves with 2 daggers, as is proper for a ninja, and Voldo switches between a variety of unusual stances, adding to his creepy yet unnatural demeanor. Even without knowing anything about the character, simply watching the way the character moves tells you plenty of what you need to know, and reading through the backstory for each character makes for one of my favorite casts in fighting games. For a game that's now over 20 years old, I still think Soul Calibur 2 is a visually great game. Sure, it's certainly aged, but the characters' clothes have an impressive amount of visual detail, and none of the faces look ugly 20 years later. Heck, some of the faces look better than games released more recently. There are even effects of wind blowing through the characters' clothes and hair. With its distinct cast of characters and impressive visual style, it's easy to see why Soul Calibur 2 would draw people in, as even just watching matches is a visual treat. And thankfully it's not just fun to watch, Soul Calibur 2 is equally as good combat. As mentioned previously, I'm a very casual fighting game fan. As such, if you're looking for an intricate breakdown of the game's various systems and mechanics, I'm sorry to say you won't find that here. All I can offer is a breakdown of the gameplay for more general audiences. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Soul Calibur takes place in a 3D stage, with each character having 3 attack buttons. There's Kick, which has a character performing a quick, low-damaging attack that typically doesn't use the fighter's weapon. Second, you have vertical attacks, which is good for attacking opponents directly in front of you, and those that may be jumping into the air. Third, you have horizontal attacks, attacks that swipe in front of you in a large arc, best for hitting opponents who may be trying to sidestep out of the way. You also have a block to defend yourself and reduce damage of attacks, and if you hit forward or back and hit block just as the opponent strikes, you'll parry your opponent, leaving them momentarily stunned and open for an attack of your own. To get through an enemy's block, you can grab the opponent, though these have short range. And finally, you have Soul Charge, which takes a while to charge, but makes your next attack extra powerful. Something particularly unique to Soul Calibur's combat is ring outs. Some stages take place in arenas surrounded by long drops, and if you hit your opponent out of the stage, you'll immediately win the round. From what I understand, this mechanic is pretty hit or miss to people. While some characters do have an easier time hitting an opponent into the air and securing a ring out than others, I personally really enjoy this. The possibility of being knocked out makes maintaining a good position on the stage just as vital as landing hits, lest your opponent sends you spiraling off the stage. However, should you despise ring outs in their entirety, there are stages that are walled off, so you're not completely out of luck. On its own, Soul Calibur's gameplay is great. The ring out system forces the player to be mindful of their placement, while the speed and movement of each attack keeps the player thinking. Soul Calibur is not a combo-intensive game. It's not about stringing together long sets of combos, seeing how long you can keep your opponent from touching the ground. Rather, it's about reading your opponent and executing your attack at the right opportunity. This gives Soul Calibur 2 an almost strategic element to it. If you wanted to, that is. Like I said, casual fighting game fan here. I'm not exactly playing at a high level. I wouldn't call my gameplay mindless, I was thinking about each move I made, but I wasn't thinking that hard. And that probably shows in the gameplay. My personal favorites to play were Talum, for her quick-hitting, acrobatic style, Nightmare, as hitting anyone with his sword was so satisfying, and he just looks really cool. Cassandra, less for her gameplay and more because I was endeared by her fun, sassy personality, and Sharad. Sharad is fun because, as his name suggests, each round he will randomly change his fighting style to that of another character. I kinda dislike that Sharad gave me a round trip of most of the roster, leading to a quick way of learning who I liked and who I didn't. Plus, Sharad doesn't just copy other characters' fighting styles, but their victory animations as well, which led to some really funny results. Soul Calibur 2's gameplay is elevated by how much the developers put into making each fight feel grandiose. Between the announcer giving melancholic and, admittedly sometimes corny, introductions to each battle,
Battles risking the soul. A man becomes a slave to his own ambition. Entrust your noble soul in your sword.
The hunter has become the hunter, and the chaser has become the chosen.
accompanied by the grand and impactful soundtrack, each battle feels monumental, and I can't get enough of it. What adds to this experience is the game's brilliant sound effects. Whether you're hitting your opponent or hearing the loud metallic clang as steel is blocked by steel, the sound makes it all the more satisfying. The game's voice acting is admittedly a bit cheesy, but I honestly love it. It kinda just reinforces that classic feeling of playing a game in an arcade, so I got a soft spot for it.
You win!
Name's Mitsurugi. Remember it!
Speaking of arcade style, when you first boot up Soul Calibur 2, you'll only have a handful of modes to choose from, with practice, standard versus, typical stuff. In terms of single player content, Your main modes are Arcade Mode and Weapon Master. Arcade Mode is what you would expect. You select a character and fight 8 fights in a row. The first 6 fights will be against random opponents, with the 7th being a predetermined destined battle, where the player will be treated with a small cutscene between the 2 rivals. Once you've completed the destined battle, you will then be faced with your 8th and final opponent, the manifestation of Soul Edge, Inferno. Inferno will use the fighting style of 3 different fighters over the course of the battle. With Inferno, I did find him a bit annoying. Because both he and his stages are constantly emitting flames, it can be a bit difficult to see his movements and react accordingly, though it is possible this was intentional to make the boss a bit harder. And honestly, given how asinine some other arcade fighter final bosses used to be, I'd gladly take this over anything else. Defeating Inferno, the player will be greeted with a short ending, showcasing what the character does following their victory, and should you beat Arcade Mode without a single loss, you'll be able to add your name to the leaderboard. The other single player mode though, Weapon Master, is the real meat of Soul Calibur 2. Weapon Master mode acts as an RPG of sorts. Here, you enter your name and play the role of someone going out on a quest to find the legendary Soul Edge. The story plays out through text, describing your adventure as you go from town to town. In this mode, you can play almost everyone in the cast, and can freely switch between them at any time, making this mode a great way to experiment with the various fighters. Weapon Master mode has you playing through a variety of challenges. Some can be straightforward, such as defeating opponents or defeating a number of weaker opponents while you slowly lose health. Other times you can be going through a dungeon, choosing your path to find the goal, or going off the beaten path to find optional treasure. There are a few weird modes in Weapon Master, such as only being able to do significant damage to an opponent while they are in the air, or needing to fight a series of opponents while constantly being pulled towards them. These have the possibility to kill this mode by filling it to burst with annoying, unfair challenges. Thankfully, the game seems to know this, as usually the trickier challenges increases the damage you deal to enemies exponentially to ensure it balances the difficulty out, and the stages that are meant to be unfair usually provide a reward that is well worth the challenge. And rewards this mode has. As you naturally progress through Weapon Master, you'll unlock additional characters, stages, and even more game modes for you to play through. Additionally, as you complete or fail missions, you'll acquire gold. With this gold, you can buy alternative costumes for characters, as well as buy additional weapons. Each character has 12 weapons total, with each weapon having different attributes, which can change up your character's playstyle. Some weapons have weaker defenses but naturally heal your HP, or increase your attack but makes it easier for enemies to parry your strikes. They keep the primary playstyle of each character, but changes things around just enough to keep things fresh and may help a character you may not like better fit your preferences. Plus, collecting all these weapons is just kinda addicting. Weapon Master mode isn't a short little mode either. The main story of Weapon Master can take upwards to 10 hours, and once you complete the final boss, the number of challenges available to play doubles. There is so much replay value in Weapon Master, and you can easily sink tens of hours playing through challenges, collecting all the weapons, and exploring dungeons. The actual story part isn't amazing, being presented mostly through text, but it's done in a way that it's easy to insert yourself and roleplay a hero going on a quest, which can be fun if you're into that sort of thing. Weapon Master mode is A+, one of the best bonus modes I have ever seen in a fighting game. Once you've played through Weapon Master, you'll likely have unlocked even more new modes, like Team Battles, which lets you play through arcade with a team of 3 characters, Survival, where you try to fight as many opponents as you can on a limited health bar, and an extra mode for each normal mode, which is the same, but it allows both you and your opponents to use the weapons you've unlocked in Weapon Master. Lastly, there are also profiles and art galleries for each character, so if you're eager to check out the backstories of the different members of the roster, or just take a look at some of the game's amazing art pieces, it's there. When it comes to fighting games, Soul Calibur 2 is the full package. A great selection of characters, graphics which still holds up today, a variety of modes, one of which is so rich with content it can quadruple playtime. Soul Calibur 2 is a remarkable game. I genuinely struggled to find any flaws with it, it's just that good. Again, I must stress that I am coming at this from a casual point of view. Maybe the game doesn't hold up well in a competitive setting or can be easily exploited. I don't know, but in my eyes, if you're looking for a great weapon-based fighter, you cannot go wrong with Soul Calibur 2. A classic that still holds a high place in the stage of history. As such, Soul Calibur 2 will cut through Tokyo Mirage Sessions and hold its place at the number 6 spot in our ranking. A brilliant game that I struggle to find any problems with. Really, the only reason it doesn't rank higher is that the other games just have particular elements I resonate with more. Hold your head up high, Soul Calibur 2. You deserve every bit of praise you continue to get. I hope you all enjoyed this video. This was probably one of my shorter videos as of late, but I'm kinda glad it worked out that way, because next time the game we'll be tackling is a big one, as we jump back into the world of JRPGs. And because I can't think of a clever hint, I'll just say we'll be jumping into the Tales of series, one of my favorite JRPG franchises. Which one though? Now that you'll just have to wait and see. In the meanwhile, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and may we see each other again when we turn to the next chapter in the Tome of Silver.